Hello and welcome to another LeetCode problem. Today we're going to be doing a pretty easy problem. It's going to be problem number 187, repeated DNA sequences. And so if you're ever taking biology or chemistry or anything, so you know that DNA sequence is composed of a series of nucleotides abbreviated ACGT, adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. And so this is a DNA sequence. When studying DNA, it's useful to identify repeated sequences in the DNA, and just from like a science background, repeated sequences means like you have the same gene over and over, and so that's good to know. And so given a string S that represents a DNA sequence, return all the 10-letter long sequences that occur more than once in a DNA molecule. You may return the answer in any order. And so in this example, so this 5A's, 5C's repeats here and here. And then also this repeats. And then in this, so you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 A's, and then obviously this is the same sequence, and this is the same sequence. So those are the things that repeat. So just think about how do we want to do this. And for our example, we can actually even make like a smaller sequence, right? Instead of 10, let's just do like a 3 or whatever, right? So let's say we have a sequence like, we'll just start with this, 5 A's. So how would we have that if we're looking for, let's say we're looking for repeated 3-letter sequences. So first of all, to get a sequence, you need a string of this many characters, right? So like you would start with just the start. And then it's pretty straightforward. You're just going to have a right pointer and a left pointer, and that's going to be your string. And then all you have to do, so what does a repeat actually mean? A repeat means you've seen it before. So how do we check if you've seen something before in preferably linear time? Well, it's also pretty straightforward. So what we can actually do is we can have a scene set. And we can literally just go through every single string of, let's say, in this example, 3 characters. So we'd start here, and we would say, okay, is it in our scene set? If it is, so we can have a scene set and we can have a res set as well. And so we can say if it's in our scene set, that means we saw it before. So let's throw it in the res set. And the nice thing about using a set for res is we can add the same string a bunch, and we will only have one copy of it, right? So our code is literally going to be, we're going to go through and we're going to check every single string. So we'll do this string, and then we'll do this string, and then we'll do this string, right? And we're going to say, is it in here? If it is, we've already seen it, so throw it in the res. Otherwise, throw it in the scene set. And so res just basically means have we seen something once, and if we've seen it once, then we can throw it in the res. And let's think of what would be actually like. So when I first did this problem, I thought like the problem with this kind of approach is, so when you actually build up strings in Python, is like, let's say you have this string, and this is 3 characters. So you would need to build it. So that would cost you, that would be go of 3. And then the problem is when you move this left and this right, you can't, strings are immutable. So you can't just delete one character. You have to recreate a new string. And so for every single string you'd make, they would be big O of 3 in this case. But the thing I didn't realize is actually it's not so bad because this is only a 10 long sequence. So then our complexity would actually be, so like for a 2-pointer, it's big O of n, and then at every point we'd have to make a string of length 10. So it'd actually be 10n, which is not that bad. So if this thing asked you for like a, let's say you had a 10 to the 5th string or something, you know, and then you had like 10 to the 10th, like you'd have to go through that, then that would be expensive because that would be more like 10 to the 5th times 10 to the 10th. But because our strings are so small, they're only 10 characters, this is just going to cancel out when we do the actual algorithm. So it'll be big O of n time. And so that is kind of important for you to realize that even though we are recreating, and that's why in a lot of algorithms, ideally, you don't want to have a string. You actually want to have a character list. And so if you had this, but the problem with this is we have something like this, but there's no really way to figure out if like, is this character list in our set? Because we can't store a list in our set. You have to store immutable objects in a set or a dictionary or something like that. So what you'd have to do is if you did store a character list, you would have to keep joining the characters in that list, which would also cost you the same thing, right? So if you try to join this into a string, that would also be big O of 3 because you have to take every single letter and add it. So there's no really good way to like, or maybe you have like a count of each character and say, but the problem with the count is like the orders will be different, right? So like if you've seen this before, it doesn't mean you've seen this before, and so on. And so the most efficient way we could do is we actually do have to manually get the strings at every index. Okay, so let's code that up. It's pretty straightforward. So we have a left and a right pointer where they're going to start at 0. Actually, what we could do is we could technically start at, yeah, so we could technically just start the right pointer at index 9 because, you know, we need a 10 character string. And then when we loop, we're going to say while right is less than length s. So if we did have like a 1-digit or something string, it would just never get into that loop. Okay, so we're going to have a scene set, and we're going to have a res set. So set. And then we're simply going to try to make every single string, right? So we'll just say while standard 2-pointer technique, so while right is less than length s. And then we can just construct the string, right? So we'll just construct the string. We'll call that temp or whatever, equals s. And in Python, it's like this, and it's non-inclusive, so you want an extra character here. And then we'll simply say if temp in scene, then go ahead and throw it in res. And we can throw it in as many times as we want, because like I said, since we have set, like if we see this thing a bunch of times, we're going to keep throwing it in res, but set will only have one occurrence of it, because you're not going to have more than one occurrence of identical items. So we can throw that in there, else. Okay, so yeah, so if it's not in scene, then just go ahead and throw it into the scene. Technically, we don't need this else, but it's fine. So, okay. And so what this will do is we're going to check every single possible string going down. So that's the nice thing, is it's a 10 lot. Once again, when you do these problems, you want to look, is it a continuous sequence, or is it a non-continuous sequence, right? Like, can I chop out some letters and make a sequence? And if you have to start chopping out letters, then you can no longer do this left and right pointer, but because here, this is a continuous sequence. Okay. And so now that we have our res, this is going to be screwed up. Okay. And so here, we're going to have a res. Now we can simply return res, and I think that should do it. Oh, I forgot a couple things actually. Yeah, so we also need to move the left and right pointer. So right plus equals 1, left. Yeah, we're gonna have an infinite loop here because we never moved it. So because we start the left and the right at like exactly the indices we want to start counting the like we're gonna have a valid string right away, we can move the left and the right. Otherwise you can start them at 0, and you can just say like, you know, if my string isn't big enough, keep the left pointer the same, and if it is big enough, then start moving the left. But this should work as well. Okay. And let's take a look. Okay. And so now let's think about the time and space complexity. So for time, it's going to be big O of n times 10, right? Because you can have, there's n different locations you can make a string, and so that's going to be that. And then for space, that will also be big O of n times 10, technically. But like I said, because, you know, we can get rid of these, this is what would actually be. Because every string is 10 characters, so if we just say that's constant, then it would be this. Because you can have this many strings, technically, in the scene, and I think they can all be unique. You can have quite a bit of unique strings with ACTG. It's like 4 to the 10th or something. So this is what it's going to be, because yeah, the 10 is going to cancel out because it's in big O, you can cancel out constant numbers. That's going to be everything for this one. Hopefully you liked this problem, and if you did, please like and subscribe. It helps grow the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.